the Canaanites, the Canaano. You understand? They're all part of, they all descend from them. You understand? And what Megalommatis and others, and this is why they have been somewhat successful in their dissemination of dissimulation and in much of their propagation of this anti-Ethiopian, this anti-Amhara, this anti-Tigray, this anti-Al-Qidan idea is because of that word Abyssinian. And see, I cannot emphasize this enough. I've spoken to many Ethiopians, and many Ethiopians will tell me, oh, we're Habesha. Yes, we call ourselves Habesha. Yes, I'm a Habesha, proud Habesha, so forth and so on. And they are but ignorant. They're ignorant, you understand, of exactly where this terminology comes from, and the fact that this terminology is not found in any of the historical documentation to refer to the Ethiopian people. It's not found in any of the older archaic, or even it's not found in our language to refer to ourselves. It is a foreign, a loan word term that we picked up. In fact, the Habesha word and Abyssinian word is much like the word nigger or negro to describe black people, to say the negroid. You know, you hear about that in a lot of so-called pseudo-Euro science. You will hear them say negro and negroid. Negroid and Habesha or Abyssinian, it's the same type of term. And Negro, Abyssinian, and Gala, these are all similar terminologies that have been imposed on the Horn of Africa peoples and black peoples in general. And what happens over time? Over time, ones accept these terminologies as their own. So now when we're reading through a lot of articles and we notice that this word Abyssinian is used as a curse. Have you noticed that? When you read Dr. Mohammed Shamsiddin Megalommatis, he uses the word Abyssinian as a curse. It's almost like he knows something that he's not really saying. I mean, he knows something that he's not really saying, because this is part of the strength of his fallacious argument, his false argument. Because as long as he can throw this Abyssinian term back on Ethiopian people and call them pseudo-Ethiopian people and not the real Ethiopian people, and say Ethiopia refers to somewhere else, and try to distort 3,000 years of history, but then when you look at the modern so-called careless, ignorant generation of Ethiopians who proudly call themselves Habesha and Abyssinians, in other words, you what's going on right there? So they basically neutralize their own defense of Ethiopia, because they have adopted this byword, this Faringe Siame, this foreign naming, this Arab nigger word. That's what it really is. It's like the Arabs calling the Ethiopians nigger, they call them Abyssinians or Habesha. It's like the same Turkish whom Mohammed Shamsiddin Megalommatis, he is part Turkish. He has Turkish background, which is very interesting, and this is one reason why he favors the Somaliland, he favors the Oromos, and he favors what Ahmed Grain did, because Ahmed Grain was an agent of the Ottoman Turks. So we have to understand who Ahmed Grain really was, what Ahmed Grain really did. So what he tries to do, he tries projectionism. He tries to project what his people, the Turks, the Greeks, and those conned Muslims, Mohammedan, who basically came under the banner of the Islamization of the Turks in the Horn of Africa, to fight against this holy covenant kingdom of Ethiopia. And you have to understand this very keenly, because if we look at it from a religious perspective, we say, all right, these are so-called Muslims, right? Right? The ones like Ahmed Gran and the rest of them. But what did Muhammad say? Didn't Muhammad say not to harm this people, the Ethiopian people, the same people who opened their doors? They have a history, notice this, they have a history of opening their doors to the Muslim refugees. Muhammad said, leave the Ethiopians alone, And then you have the Ottoman Turks, and we don't want to go into it, but we do need to go into some of the history of the Ottoman Turks. So instead of you trying to argue with, say, Dr. Mohammed Shamsiddin Megalommatis, you understand, on what he is trying to, because you don't even understand, you shouldn't be using the word Abyssinian and Habesha. And because you don't understand that, as soon as you engage in that argument and you start to identify yourself as Habesha and Abyssinian, you already lose the Ethiopia argument, because now he's saying you're not really the real Ethiopians of the Bible, of Scripture, of the Covenant. Really, there's somebody else. And when we turn and say, who else are they? He can't point to, he said, well, there's over in this land somewhere further north, further closer to where he's operating out of Egypt. And this is one of the reasons why he's very much against Mamo Munchi's Coptic states of Ethiopia, Coptic Empire of Ethiopia, Coptic states, I believe, of Ethiopia is one of the reasons why. You understand? He's calling these plans colonial plans. You understand? And furthermore, we're going to get into this a little bit more, but Ethiopians have to get out of this Habesha trap, because it's a Habesha trap. You understand? Habesha is a fringe term. Whether you say Habesha, Abyssinia, it's a fringe term. That's why you cannot clearly, in the Amharic or in the Ge'ez language, you cannot clearly find its roots and its origins as a verb. But if you go into the Arabic, that's where you find its roots and its origins as a verb. So now we know exactly what the origin of this word really is. And this is one reason why most of these sort of scholars, and even many other scholars like the Wallace Budge and the others, why they like to hold to that sort of terminology. You understand? Because to acknowledge the truth, ones will ask them, well, why are you fighting against the people of God? Why are you fighting against God's people? And why have you sought to divide and conquer God's people along such ethnic and racial, otherwise lines and everything? But get out of the Habesha trap. Habesha is a foreign loan word. It's not an indigenous, by no means is the indigenous terminology. It's not a Ethiopian. It's like the word Gala. It's like the word nigger and Negro. It's that sort of terminology. As long as Ethiopians, and this is a point to those who advocate Ethiopianism, you understand, which is called Ethiopiawinet. You see, we read in a particular article that Dr. Professor Propagandist Mohammed Shamsiddin Megalommatis wrote. I think it was on the American Chronicle, or maybe it was on Buzzer, one of those sites. And we do advocate that brothers and sisters should check it out, because it's a very interesting, it's a very vibrant debate. You understand? And if you don't understand something, you can go look it up in the history books and really, do your own work on learning these, because this is what the issues are. This is where the real heart of the battle is. It's on the spiritual level. It's in the ideas. Which ideas will prevail? Will the truth prevail, or will these lies and dissemination and twisting of things for a non-African? It's like Mohammed Shamsiddin Megalommatis is claiming that he is championing African peoples, and yet his own peoples he does not criticize for their atrocities and bloodthirstiness and bloodshed in Africa, or inciting the religious and the tribal differences. You understand? It's people who share much more in common with Dr. Professor Mohammed Shamsiddin Megalommatis, whether we go to the so-called Islamic or Mohammedan line, whether we go to the Turkish line, whether we go to the Greek line, whether we go to the pseudo-modern Egyptianist line, Egyptology, the fake-ass Egyptology line. All of that was against black peoples. Now he's trying to say he favors these black peoples who have some legitimate gripes and grievances with on a civil rights level. You see, many of the grievances of certain tribes, like the Oromos, are really civil rights level grievances. You understand? Within the system, they are appealing for fair treatment, which they may not have received under, in certain situations, or part of their memory has somewhat been tampered with, because many of these things cannot be historically proven, but they're claimed now. We can prove what we're saying because the history is there to prove exactly what we are saying. So he's opposing basically Ethiopian unity. Ones like Dr. Professor Mohammed Shamsiddin Megalommatis, he's opposing Ethiopian unity because it goes against what his masters and his predecessors have attempted to do and failed. The Ottoman Turks, they failed. You understand? The Greeks, you understand? They failed. The modern Egyptian state is a failed state. You understand? But you don't hear him speaking about that. But from Egypt, he's speaking about Ethiopia's situation. Why?